Ambassador Vela of the Cathari Dominion stood at the observation window of the diplomatic vessel Starweaver. The stars stretched before her like scattered diamonds on black silk. She had traveled this route many times, but tonight she felt restless. Behind her, Counselor Nira was reading from a datapad. The young Cathari woman had been assigned to Vela only 2 months ago, but she had already proven herself useful. She was smart, careful, and asked good questions. Ambassador, Nira said, the human security team has completed their patrol. Their leader wishes to know if you require anything. Vela turned from the window. Her silver skin caught the starlight, and her 4 eyes blinked slowly. No, tell them I am fine. Nira nodded but did not leave. Ambassador, may I ask you something? Of course. The other delegates. They seem afraid of the humans. Even the Varax ambassador moves aside when they walk past. Why is that? Vela made a sound that was close to laughter. Because they believe the stories, child. Every species in the Galactic Concord has heard the tales. Humans who fight for days without rest. Humans who survive wounds that would kill any other creature. Humans who walked into battles they could not win and somehow walked out again. She shook her head. Nonsense. All of it. You do not believe the stories? I believe that humans are good at telling stories. That is all. Vela moved to her chair and sat down. Look at them, Nira. Really look. They have soft skin. No armor, no scales, no protective shell. They have no claws, no venom, no natural weapons. They cannot see in the dark like we can. They cannot hear frequencies beyond their narrow range. They are, by any measure, one of the weakest species in the galaxy. Nira considered this. But they have spread across many systems. They have built colonies on worlds that other species abandoned. They have good technology and strong determination. Vela interrupted. These are admirable qualities, but they do not make them the warriors of legend. She leaned back in her chair. I have met humans before, Nira. They are polite. They are clever. Some of them are even kind. But they bleed like anyone else. They break like anyone else. The stories are propaganda, designed to make other species fear them. That night, Vela attended the welcome dinner in the ship's grand hall. Representatives from 12 species sat around a long table, eating foods from their home worlds and making careful conversation. The treaty they were traveling to negotiate would affect trade routes across 3 sectors. Everyone was being very polite and very cautious. Vala found herself seated near the human delegation. There were only 4 of them, a security team assigned to protect the human ambassador. A thin woman named Yuna, who smiled too much and said too little. The security team's leader was a man named Do-hyun. Vela studied him throughout the meal. He was average height for a human, with a plain face and dark hair cut short. He wore simple clothes in dark colors, and he sat with his back to the wall. His eyes moved constantly, watching doors, watching faces, watching hands. But when someone spoke to him, he was pleasant. He laughed at jokes. He complimented the chef Dodd. There was nothing special about him at all, Dodd, at one point. Their eyes met. Do-hyun nodded politely, the way one stranger acknowledges another. Vala nodded back. Later, as she returned to her quarters, she passed him in the corridor. He was checking a door panel, running some kind of security scan. He did not seem to notice her at first, and she took the opportunity to observe him more closely. He moved efficiently, she noticed. No wasted motion. His hands were steady, his posture relaxed but alert. There was something about the way he held himself that suggested training, discipline. But that was true of any professional soldier from any species. Ambassador, he said, suddenly aware of her presence. He straightened and stepped aside to let her pass. I hope you are enjoying the voyage. It is pleasant enough, she replied. I see your team takes security very seriously. Standard procedure, Ambassador. Nothing to worry about. I was not worried. He smiled at that, a small smile, barely there. Of course not. Good evening, Ambassador. She walked on, and he returned to his work. That night, Viola dreamed. In her dream, she stood on a battlefield she did not recognize. The sky was red, and the ground was covered with bodies. She walked among them, looking for something, though she did not know what. Then, she saw him. Da-Hyun stood alone in the center of the field, surrounded by enemies. He was wounded, bleeding from a dozen cuts, but he did not fall. He fought with his hands, with his teeth, with anything he could reach. And as she watched, something cold moved through her chest. Fear. She was afraid. Not of him, but for him. Because he was not going to stop. No matter what they did to him, no matter how many came, he was not going to stop fighting. She woke with her hearts racing. The room was dark and quiet. The ship hummed around her, peaceful and safe. It was just a dream, she told herself. Just a dream brought on by too much rich food and too many old stories. She did not believe in human legends. She did not believe in warriors who would not die. But as she lay there in the darkness, she found that she could not go back to sleep. And somewhere deep in her mind, in the place where instinct lived, something whispered a warning she could not quite hear. Outside her window, the stars continued their ancient journey. And somewhere ahead, in the darkness between worlds, something was waiting. The attack came in the dead of night, when most of the ship was sleeping. Vela woke to the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed in her quarters, and a mechanical voice repeated the same words over and over. Security breach. All passengers remain in quarters. Security breach. All passengers remain in quarters. She was out of bed immediately, her 4 eyes adjusting to the flashing light. Through the walls, she could hear shouting, running footsteps. Then something else, a sound she had never heard before but recognized. Immediately, weapons fire. The door to her quarters burst open, and Counselor Nira rushed in. The young Cathari was pale, her silver skin almost white with fear. Ambassador, we have to go. Now, what is happening? Raiders. The Hollow Syndicate. They came through the cargo bay. Nira grabbed Vila's arm and pulled her toward the door. The captain ordered all delegates to the secure hold. We have to hurry. They ran into the corridor. Smoke was filling the air, thick and bitter. Vela could hear screaming somewhere ahead, the high, desperate sound of people in pain. Her hearts were beating so fast she thought they might burst. This way, Nira said, pulling her down a side passage. The main corridor is blocked. They moved through the ship like ghosts, ducking into doorways when they heard footsteps, holding their breath when shadows passed by windows. Vela had never been so afraid in her life. The Cathari were not warriors. They were diplomats, scholars, traders. They solved problems with words, not weapons. They had no defense against this. They rounded a corner and stopped. 3 figures stood in the passage ahead. They were Virak's massive creatures covered in hard, black shells. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness, and they carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Raiders. Syndicate soldiers. One of them saw the 2 Cathari and made a sound like grinding rocks. More hostages, it said. Its voice was deep and cruel. The boss will be pleased. Nira stepped forward, putting herself between Vela and the raiders. Please, she said. We are diplomats. We have value. We can negotiate. The lead raider moved faster than Vela could follow. Its clawed hand shot out and grabbed Nira by the throat, lifting her off the ground. Nira made a choking sound, her legs kicking uselessly in the air. We do not negotiate, the raider said. We take. Vela could not move. Her body was frozen, every muscle locked in place. She watched Nira struggle, watched her counselor's face turn dark from lack of air, and she could do nothing. She was helpless. Then a shadow moved behind the raiders. The first one fell without a sound. One moment it was standing, the next it was on the ground, its red eyes dark. The second raider turned, weapon rising, but something was already there, something fast and precise and utterly without mercy. Duhayan. The human moved like water, like wind, like something that could not be touched. He was inside the raider's guard before it could fire, his hands finding weak points in the creature's armor. There was a crack, a spray of dark fluid, and the second raider collapsed. The third raider dropped nearer and charged. It was twice Dohin's size, armored, armed, bred for war. It swung a massive fist at the human's head. Dayan did not dodge. He stepped into the blow, taking the impact on his shoulder and ribs. Vala heard the crack of bone breaking, saw the human's face twist with pain. But he did not fall. He did not even slow down. His hands moved. The raider's weapon fell to the ground. Then the raider itself fell, making a wet, gurgling sound as it died. Doyan stood over the bodies, breathing hard. Blood ran from a wound on his temple, dripping down his face. He looked at Vila with eyes that were calm and clear. "Ambassador," he said, "we need to move." Nero was on the ground, coughing and gasping. Vila knelt beside her, helping her sit up. "Can you walk?" "I think so." Nara's voice was rough, her throat already bruising. What just happened?" Vila looked up at Dayan. He was checking the fallen raiders, taking their weapons, moving with the efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. His ribs were broken. She had heard them crack, but he showed no sign of the pain. "How?" Vila asked. "How are you still standing?" Dohyun glanced at her. Something that might have been a smile crossed his face. "Training, adrenaline." He offered her a hand. Stubbornness. She took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. His grip was strong, steady, warm. The hand of a warrior. "The secure hold is compromised," he said. "We're going to the engine room. It's defensible, and the raiders probably don't know the ship well enough to find it easily." He handed one of the raiders' weapons to Vila. "Do you know how to use this?" "No." "Point and press the trigger. Try not to shoot anyone who isn't trying to kill you." He started down the corridor, not looking back. "Stay close. Stay quiet. Do exactly what I say." Vila followed. Behind her, Nira struggled to her feet and followed too. The stories, Vela thought as they moved through the smoke-filled ship. The legends of human warriors. She was beginning to understand. They were not exaggerations. They were not propaganda. They were warnings. The engine room was deep in the belly of the ship, behind 3 heavy doors that Dojun sealed one by one. When the last door closed, Vila finally allowed herself to breathe. They were not alone. 19 survivors huddled in the dim space between the massive power cores. Delegates from 6 species, crew members. Servants, all of them terrified. All of them looking at Do-hyun like he was their only hope. Perhaps he was. "The captain is dead," said a Maran engineer, his tentacles wrapped tightly around himself. "They killed him on the bridge. Took his access codes. They control the ship now." "How many raiders?" Do-hyun asked. "We saw at least 20. Maybe more." Do-hyun nodded slowly. He was leaning against a wall, and Vela noticed that he was holding his side. The wound from the fight was worse than she had thought. His shirt was dark with blood. "They want hostages," he said. "That's good news. It means they won't destroy the ship. They'll want to keep us alive for ransom." He looked around the room, counting faces. 19 of us. Maybe 20 raiders. Those aren't great odds, but they aren't impossible either. "What are you suggesting?" Vala asked. "I'm suggesting that we don't wait here like prey." His eyes found hers. "They'll find us eventually. Every hour we wait, they get more organized, more prepared. Right now, they're still dealing with the chaos of the attack. That's when they're weakest. You want to fight them? The Moran engineer sounded horrified. There are 20 of them. Armored. And you're just one human. Do-hyun smiled. It was a strange smile, calm and quiet. I know. He pushed himself off the wall and began checking his weapons. He had taken 3 from the raiders he killed, and he handled them like they were extensions of his body. Stay here, he said. Keep the doors sealed. Don't open them for anyone unless they give you this code word, sunrise. He looked at each of them in turn. If I'm not back in 6 hours, assume I'm dead. Use the emergency pods in the lower deck. They're small, but they'll hold you until rescue comes. You're going alone? Nira asked. Her voice was still rough from the raider's grip. Alone is faster. Alone is quieter. He moved toward the door. I'll draw their attention. Keep them busy. Maybe thin their numbers a little. Vila stepped forward. This is suicide, maybe. He did not turn around. But it's the best chance you have. Then he was gone, slipping through the door like a shadow. It sealed behind him with a heavy clunk, and Vala was left staring at the metal surface. The hours that followed were the longest of her life. They waited in silence, listening to the sounds of the ship. Sometimes they heard nothing. Sometimes they heard distant shouts, weapons fire, the crash of something heavy falling. Each sound made them flinch. Each silence made them hold their breath. Twice, someone tried to open the outer door. They heard voices outside, raider voices, angry and confused. But the doors held, and eventually the voices went away. Nira sat beside Vela, her knees drawn up to her chest. Do you think he's still alive? I don't know. The stories about humans. The ones you said were just propaganda. Nira looked at her. Do you still believe that? Vela did not answer. She was thinking about the way Do-hyun had moved, the way he had taken that blow to his ribs and kept fighting. She was thinking about his smile before he left, calm, accepting. The smile of a man who knew he might die and had made peace with it. The Cathari feared death. It was their greatest weakness. They avoided conflict, avoided danger, avoided anything that might end their lives before their time. They called it wisdom. They called it civilization. But watching Do-hyun walk into the darkness alone, Vala had felt something she had never felt before. Not respect, it was deeper than that. It was awe. The same awe she might feel watching a star be born, or a planet die. Some things were simply beyond understanding. 4 hours passed. Then 5. The door opened. Everyone jumped to their feet, weapons raised. The few who had weapons anyway. But it was Do-hyun who stepped through, and he was alone. He looked terrible. His face was bruised and bloody. His left arm hung at an odd angle. He was limping badly, and his breathing was wet and ragged. But he was alive, and he was smiling. 12 down, he said. 8 left. They're scared now, confused. They don't know what's hunting them. He moved to a corner and sat down heavily. I need water, and something to wrap this arm. Vila brought him both. As she wrapped his injured arm, it was dislocated, not broken. She saw the full extent of his wounds. Burns on his back, deep cuts on his legs, bruises everywhere. You should not be alive, she said quietly. Probably not. He drank the water in long, desperate gulps. But I'm stubborn. Remember? Why? She finished wrapping his arm and sat back. Why are you doing this? These people are not your people. This is not your fight. You could have hidden with us. Waited for rescue. Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. When I was young, there was a fire in my village. A building collapsed with children inside. Everyone said it was too dangerous to go in. Everyone said we should wait for help. He looked at her. My father did not wait. He went in alone. He saved 3 children before the building fell on him. He closed his eyes. I could not save him. I was too young, too weak. But I made a promise that day. I promised that I would never stand by while others suffered. Not if I could do something about it. Vila understood that it was not about bravery. It was not about legends or stories or propaganda. It was about a promise. A simple human promise. And Do-hyun intended to keep it, even if it killed him. 8 hours had passed since the attack began. 8 hours of fear, of waiting, of listening to the sounds of death echo through the ship. Do-hyun had gone out twice more. Each time he came back with fewer enemies to worry about. Each time he came back in worse condition. Now there were only 7 raiders left. But Do-hyun had reached his limit. Vila found him collapsed against a bulkhead near the engine room door. He was pressing his hand to his side, and when he moved his fingers, she saw dark blood welling between them. It was not the bright red of fresh wounds. It was dark, almost black. Internal bleeding. You need medical attention, she said, kneeling beside him. Immediately. Medical bay is in the forward section. His voice was weak, barely above a whisper. Raiders have it locked down. They're using it as their base. He coughed, and something wet rattled in his chest. So that's not happening. Then we surrender. Vila grabbed his arm. We negotiate. This is what my people do. We find solutions without violence. I can talk to them. I can offer them. What? Do-hyun's eyes found hers. There was no anger in them, only exhaustion. And something else. Something that looked like pity. What can you offer them, Ambassador? Money. Safe passage. Immunity from prosecution. There are always options. These are not negotiators. He shook his head slowly. I've seen their kind before. Hollow Syndicate doesn't take prisoners for ransom. They take prisoners for sale. Slave markets in the outer systems. He pointed at Nira, who was watching from a few feet away. Your counselor has a limp now. Damaged goods. They'll sell her cheap or space her. Most of the crew are the same. Injured, old, or wrong species for the markets. Vila felt cold. But the delegates, valuable. Some of you? They'll keep the ones they can sell and eliminate the rest. He met her eyes. You're the Cathari ambassador. You have worth. Most of the others don't. The truth settled over her like ice water. She had spent her entire life believing that words could solve any problem. That intelligence and diplomacy could overcome any obstacle. That violence was the refuge of the simple-minded, the desperate, the uncivilized. But there was no negotiating with monsters. No reasoning with those who saw other beings as nothing more than products to be sold. So what do we do? She asked. Do-hyun pushed himself upright. It took a long time. His face was gray, his breathing shallow. Every movement seemed to cause him pain. I finished this, he said. You'll die. Probably. He checked his weapon. It was nearly empty. But not before they do. Vela watched him move toward the door. He was barely able to walk. His left arm was useless. Blood soaked through his clothes in a dozen places. By any reasonable measure, he should have been dead hours ago. But he kept moving. One step, then another, then another. Wait, he stopped. Did not turn around. Vela stood. Her hearts were racing, her hands trembling. Fear crawled through her body like a living thing, telling her to hide, to run, to do anything except what she was about to do. You are not going alone, she said. Now he turned. His eyes were surprised. Ambassador, you said it yourself. Most of us have no value to them. They will kill us anyway. She moved to stand beside him. If we are going to die, we should die fighting. not hiding in a corner like prey. Nira stood up. I'm coming too. Then the Moran engineer. Then a Cathari servant. Then others, one by one, until 12 of the 19 survivors were standing. Nayan looked at them for a long moment. Something moved across his face, an emotion Vela could not name. Pride, perhaps. Or gratitude. Or simply recognition. You don't know how to fight, he said. Then teach us. Vela picked up a weapon from the floor. We have a few minutes. Teach us what we need to know. So he did. He showed them how to hold the weapons, how to aim, how to use cover, how to move without making noise. It was not much. A few minutes of instruction could not replace years of training, but it was something. When he was finished, he looked at each of them in turn. The human military has a saying, he said. Everyone has a breaking point. The place where fear stops and something else takes over. Some people never find it. Some people find it and run away. He paused. And some people find it and realize that there are things more important than being afraid. He turned toward the door. Stay behind me. Watch my signals. And when the fighting starts, don't think. Just act. The door opened. The darkness waited beyond, and 12 frightened souls, led by one dying human, walked into it together. The cargo bay was large and dark, filled with shadows and the smell of smoke. Emergency lights flickered overhead, casting everything in shades of red and black. 7 raiders waited there. They had gathered to plan their final sweep of the ship, to find the hostages they knew were hiding somewhere. They were confident. They were armed. They had already won. Then Doyun walked out of the shadows. He moved slowly, deliberately, making no attempt to hide. His weapon hung at his side. His broken body was held together by nothing but will. The raiders turned to face him. Their leader, a massive Varax with ritual scars across its black shell, stepped forward. Its red eyes glowed in the darkness. You are the human, it said. We have heard about you. You killed 12 of my soldiers. 13, Doyun corrected. One died while I was walking here. The raider made a grinding sound that might have been a laugh. You are brave. I will give you that. But bravery means nothing against numbers, against weapons, against armor. It gestured at Dohyun's broken body. Look at you. You can barely stand. What do you think you can do against 7 of us? Dohyun smiled. It was the same calm smile Vela had seen before, the smile of a man who had already made peace with death. I think I can do enough, he said. The raider raised its weapon. We have killed your kind before, human. You die like anyone else. Yeah, Doyun agreed. We do. His smile widened. But not easily. And not alone. Then he moved. Vela had thought she understood human speed after watching him fight the raiders in the corridor. She was wrong. What she had seen before was a human fighting carefully, conserving energy. Planning for a long campaign. This was different. This was a human who knew he was going to die, and had decided to take as many enemies with him as possible. He was a blur, a force of nature. He moved through the raiders like a storm through trees, and everywhere he passed, death followed. The first raider fell with its throat torn out. The second managed to fire once. The shot caught Doyun in the shoulder, but then it was down too. Its weapon turned against its own head. The others opened fire. Viola watched from her hiding place behind a cargo container, watched as energy bolts struck Dohyun's body, watched as he staggered but did not fall. He kept moving. A blade opened his shoulder to the bone. He killed the one who held it. His weapon ran empty. He threw it at a raider's face and used the moment of distraction to close the distance. He fought with his hands, with his elbows, with his teeth. When his legs finally gave out, he fought from his knees. 4 raiders were down. then 5, then 6. The leader remained. It stood over Do-yoon, who had finally collapsed. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading across the floor in a dark mirror. His eyes were still open, still defiant, but he could not rise. "Impressive," the raider said. It raised its weapon. "But this is the end, human. You fought well. I will remember you." Its finger tightened on the trigger. Vila did not remember deciding to move. She did not remember leaving her hiding place or raising her weapon. She only remembered firing, the kick back hard against her shoulder, the bright flash of energy crossing the space between them. The shot took the raider in the back. It was not a killing blow. Vorak's armor was too strong for that, but it was enough. The creature stumbled, turned, its red eyes finding her. "You," it hissed. "The Cathari diplomat? I was going to let you live." It raised its weapon toward her, but Nero was already there, firing from behind another container. Then the Moran engineer. Then the others, emerging from hiding, weapons blazing. They were not soldiers. Their aim was poor, their shots wild. But there were many of them, and the raider could not block them all. It fell slowly, like a mountain crumbling. When it finally hit the ground, the cargo bay was silent. Vila ran to Do-yoon. He was still alive barely. His breathing was shallow, his skin cold and pale. But when she knelt beside him, his eyes focused on her face. "Did we get them?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "Yes." Tears were running down Vila's face. She did not know when she had started crying. "All of them." He nodded. Something that might have been a smile crossed his features. "Good," he said. That's good." His eyes closed. Rescue arrived 3 hours later. A patrol ship had detected the Star Weaver's distress signal and came to investigate. They found 19 survivors and the bodies of 20 raiders, and a human security officer who was, somehow, still breathing, despite wounds that should have killed him 10 times over. Vila visited him in the medical station, on Helm 7 a week later. He was wrapped in bandages and surrounded by machines that hummed and beeped, but his eyes were clear. He was going to live. The doctor said it was a miracle. Vila knew better. It was not a miracle. It was just human. "I owe you an apology," she said, sitting beside his bed. "I dismissed your people. I thought the stories were exaggeration." Dahim laughed, then winced at the pain. "Most humans aren't like me, Ambassador. We're not all warriors." "No," Vela agreed. "But enough of you are. And I think perhaps that's what the galaxy doesn't understand. Not that all humans can fight, but that when pushed, when the people they protect are threatened, any of you can become something more." Dahan was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "We call it the breaking point," he said. "The place where fear stops and something else takes over." He looked at her. "Your people found it on that ship, Ambassador. You picked up a weapon. You fought. That wasn't me. That was you." Vela had no answer for that. She looked at her hands, the hands that had held a weapon, that had fired at another living being, that had helped save lives. "The legends," Do-yoon continued, "they're not about humans being special. They're about what happens when anyone decides that something matters more than their own survival." He smiled, tired and genuine. "We just have a lot of practice." Vila returned to the Cathari Dominion. She gave her report to the High Council, and when they asked about humans, she said this: "Do not underestimate them. Not because they are monsters, but because they remind us what we could be, if we chose to stop being afraid." The legends, she had learned, were not exaggerations. They were not propaganda. They were the simple truth about a species that had looked into the darkness of the universe and refused to be afraid. And now, because of them, the Cathari had learned to do the same. The stars continued their ancient journey, and somewhere out there, Among the billions of worlds, humans kept their watch, ready, willing, unafraid. The galaxy had been warned.